Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm just going to do a quick video about the spare tire for a Ford Ranger, particularly 93 to 97. This is a 97 two-wheel drive. I believe the 98s and above had a little bit different process. It actually had a toolkit that it came with to lower the spare down, so this might fall in line with some maybe older ones from 97, but if I remember correctly, I do believe the 98s and newer have a different setup as far as the spare is concerned. This, like I said, is a 97. This is my daily beater, so I definitely need a spare tire for it. This didn't come with one, so what we're going to be doing here is giving this truck a spare tire. So let's see if we can give this truck a spare tire and make it safe for if we ever get a flat. Alright guys, so this is the spare tire setup on our Ranger. So this whole member right here is actually what holds the tire there, if you didn't already know that. Now, that's where the tire is going to go. Hole in there for a lug nut to hold it up. And this right here is actually a hinge mount, so once this nut comes off, or this bolt comes off, we can actually lower this back. And this should actually, give us access to actually put a tire in there, or in the opposite case, get the tire out. So this right here is a 20 mil bolt. We're going to go ahead and get that out. And then from there, we should have access to put a spare in here. Alright guys, this cracked loose pretty easy. 19 mil socket, 19 mil bolt. Use the half drive wrench. Alright, now if you have the OE lug wrench, this should be the same size as your lug nuts. A 19 mil, so you should be able to take your lug wrench and break this loose. So let's see if we can get this apart now. Alright guys, so we got access. As you can see, this hinge is working. She is rusted, as I'm sure you know. But I might hit that with some WD. Get that loosened up a little bit, but we got access. So I'm assuming that this should move and swing down so you have access, because there's no way full-size tires fitting in that gap right there. So we're probably rusted right there to the sway bar. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and try to get these loosened up to see if we can't crack this so it can swing and give us room to actually fit or remove a tire. So let's go, guys. So I was right in my thinking to think that this should move and flex on this sway bar here. So I was first thinking, let's try to get these bolts out, but obviously they could be rusted. I put some PV on there, and I didn't really want to risk breaking either of them. So what I did is, you can look right, I don't know if you can see, it might be hard, but if you look at where that clamp meets the sway bar, it looks like it should have some space in there. It's all rusted. So what I did is I took a little hammer, just beat down the body a little bit. Okay, if you can see, it might be hard to see on here, but I got a little bit of movement now from this thing. So this is putting us in the right direction. I think what I'm going to do now is heat this up with a torch, maybe give it a little bit more play, and see if we can't break this loose without taking those bolts out to make it swing as it should when it was factory. So let's go ahead and try that now. Alright guys, so that got us some more play, if you can see. Still not much though. So it definitely probably helped get that loosened up a hair and get some of that rust out of there. But I think what I'm really going to have to do is just crack those bolts loose a hair so I can get some play with this and make it move and swing as it should. But before I do that, I'm going to spray a little bit of WD-40 in there and see if we can't get it to move a little bit more. So let's try that real quick. Oh, there it is, guys. I didn't have to do it. I don't have to mess with those bolts. This thing's moving pretty good. Yeah. we go, guys. We got it loose. So if you're like me, going in blind and you had no idea if this should move or not, it should. That's the only way you're going to be able to get that tire in or out. So what I'm going to do is just play with this a little bit more, just loosen up, get some of that rust out of that clamp, and we should be good. And this should be able to be utilized from the, for the future. So if I ever do need to use it, it should be able to move. So let's go ahead and just work this a little bit more just to free it up, and we should be good. All right, guys, so here is our spare. This is just an OEM Ford 5-star wheel for the Ranger. This is actually what came stock on this 97 XLT. Now what I did here is this tire used to be on one of my aftermarket wheels, although it got damaged, as you can see right there. So the tire is still good. I was driving on it for a little bit, but obviously, you don't really want to drive on a damaged tire, so this would be fine for a spare. So what I did is I got a new tire for my wheel that I use for my aftermarket, and we just took the old tire off and put it on one of our old stocks. So we are going to have a full-size spare. Now let's go ahead and see if we can get this spare actually under the truck. All right, guys, so as you can see, we have our spare in the spare location. I don't have it fully mounted yet. As you can see, that bolt's still out and there's nothing holding it in. So this kind of puts me in a dilemma, because I was hoping when I was doing this that that middle section would actually go through the middle of the wheel and hold it, but maybe it did with the actual spare that was provided with this. Maybe if it was like a concave wheel or something where the surface was flat, but not with this thing, man. This thing just misses, and it doesn't work this way with the front facing or the rear. So nothing, either way, we'll just let this go through the middle of it. So that puts me in a spot where this thing can slide and move, as you can see, right into the rear diff, as it just did. So obviously that's going to be happening. You can see it moved right off. So I need to find something to utilize this hole and get something through that with a lug nut. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure that out now and see what I want to do in order to get this mounted correctly so we have easy access to it if we ever need to use it. So all right, guys, so it is the next day. I am still trying to figure out how I want to get this thing mounted on here now. I know a lot more than I did yesterday, so as you can see, I ended up taking this off, as I didn't want to do, but it actually ended up being pretty easy. This thing was moving really nice from me messing with it yesterday, and these bolts were a lot better than I thought. So on this clamp, I'm cleaning it up nice. These were actually 10 mils, and it's a 13 to hold this, so I just held these with a 13 breaker bar, and I got these out with a 10. So if you do ever need to take this out for any reason, you would have to hold the nut on the back of the clamp. So it'd be right here. You'd hold that with a 13, and then you would just turn the other side with a 10. So that's how we got this thing out of there. So I actually went to the junkyard today just to see if I could find the stock setup, or even just see what the stock setup looked like. And there was actually a bunch of Rangers there, as there always is at my local U-Pull-It, and I saw a couple of them. Most of them either didn't have it, or the bed is on the ground from not having wheels or anything like that. But there was one that I was messing with and trying to get out, and I just couldn't do it. It was so rusted. It didn't have the spare on there. Can't talk, obviously. It didn't have the spare, but it did have the pin that went into this. So it looks just like a hook almost, and it just goes right into here. I actually have a picture from the stock factory manual, and I'll post it right here just so you can get an idea what it looks like stock. But I couldn't get that thing out for anything, and actually what I wanted to do was try to utilize a stock lug nut so everything could be the same. Although if we look at this hole, this one on our member here is a little bit smaller hole than what's on the lug nut. So what I was thinking of is taking a bolt and having the other side have a lug nut so everything would fall in line with the same size. So our lug nuts would be a 19, our bolt holding this on would be a 19, and then I could just use a 19 for this, but it didn't work out that way because it is not the same size as a lug nut. So we're gonna have to find that exact size. And also this hole right here, you can't fit a 19 mil socket in there, or 18 even. The smallest socket that fits in that is a 17 in this opening. So without modifying this, you know, leaving it unmolested, this is the smallest thing we could do, or the biggest I should say would be a 17. So this is what we're working with right now. Obviously that's not going to work as I originally intended. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take this to Lowe's and see if I can find something to actually find out what the exact measurements are for that screw hole. Then I'm going to try to find something there, maybe like an anchor screw or bolt or something of that nature, maybe, so I can, you know, utilize this with the actual OEM threads. But I'll get back to you guys once I get this sorted out, and then I'll show you what I come up with. Alright guys, so we're back. It's another day. I think I have this figured out and what we're going to do in order to get this mounted and situated. So this hole right here, it looks like it's a 7/16 14th. So that is what the actual hole thread size is. I tried to get a couple of different bolts in there, although it seems to be stripped. I can get them turned into about, it's flush with the bottom of this nut that's welded in there, and then it just doesn't go anymore. So that hole's obviously compromised, and that's probably why the original setup isn't in here in the first place. So what I did is I tried to replicate the stock setup as best as I could with parts that are going to work. So the stock setup, how it's set up, it has an eye bolt just like this coming through the top for some reason. I'm not so sure what mounted on the bottom, if anything. I don't think it did, because the only one I saw in the junkyard had no tire. It had an eye bolt that was this thread size, just in there rusted. So I tried to get that eye bolt out from that stock setup on the junkyard Ranger, but I couldn't get it out. It was rusted shut, and it was probably been in there forever with no spare, so it wasn't even worth messing with. So this is actually a 3/8 eye bolt. It slides right in that hole pretty tight without being threaded. So let's see if we can get this in there, and we'll take it from there. Alright guys, we are back and we have our spare finally mounted. Finally got something that I liked, that I figured out would work, and I think this is the best option possible for, you know, what we got here, what we were working with. So I actually have two different options that I purchased, and you know, if you're doing this at home, you can probably choose either one, whatever one you prefer. So here's what I did. Like I said, we got the 3/8 eye bolt. Actually got some 3/8 wing nuts, and to make this accessible easy, I think a wing nut was the best thing without actually putting a nut that would require a socket on here. So literally you could unscrew this, comes off, and if you needed to, you could push that right back up. Now I didn't even have to put it through a lug nut hole. There's actually a hole that's a 3/8 size in this stock wheel here, in this 5-star. So I utilized that 3/8 hole instead of a lug nut hole. Still can't talk apparently. This 3/8 fits in that hole pretty perfect, as you can see. Hopefully you can see that in there. And then we just got our wing nut. Now the other option that I purchased is actually utilizing a nut. So this stuff's all from Fastenal. So the one we used on the truck, that's a 6-inch eye bolt. This one right here is a 4-inch. Now I could have used a 4-inch with a regular nut, but like I said, this would have needed a socket in order to, you know, be taken off on the side of the road. And obviously this is for a spare, this is for side of the road maintenance, you know, quick, easy stuff. So for that purpose, I think that the wing nut was the best option. If you get the 6, it actually hangs below our spare tire cross member, and we can utilize that wing nut as I showed you. But if you wanted to and actually use a nut to really get it secure in there, you could utilize a 4-inch, put the nut on there, and then that would give you, probably bring it to about right here where a socket could fit on there. If I even tried to use this nut here on the 6-inch, it wouldn't work because I would never be able to get a socket deep enough to get on there. So that's your two options here. You could do the 6-inch eye bolt, with a wing nut and a washer, or you can do a 4-inch eye bolt with a nut that would need a socket. So like I said, I got all this stuff from Fastenal. Some part numbers right here for you. You just got to ask for an eye bolt if you do want to do this. So there we go, guys. We got our spare tire finally mounted. You can see right here, I got some WD-40 up in there, so that's really moving freely now. When I put these back in, I anti-seized them, so they're good. Also, when I put the clamp and the cross member back on our bar here, I actually put energy suspension bushing grease in here to prevent it from rotting, from getting more rusted, and also to give it that flex. So in here, we should be good. This should move pretty freely. I'm even going to show you guys how this will come apart real quick. So let me take this apart and I'll show you guys just how freely this will move. Alright guys, so we are done. Just wanted to give you guys a quick view of how this should look. Now, like I said, remember, this is how the stock setup came. It does have an eye bolt on the top of the wheel, so we pretty much replicated this stock setup the best we could. But as you can see, this is moving beautifully now. This is great. It's like it, you know, just came off the freaking lot. So that's moving nice. We got nice play in our clamp from our grease. As you can see, we're still mounted up here, so this thing is on here. We're not moving at all. It's perfectly on our arm, hinged, swinging perfect how it should be. So we have successfully put a spare tire in our 97 Ranger here, guys. So hopefully this was helpful. This was a pain to say the least for me, trying to figure out what I could utilize to make this as simple and easy as possible, but I think I figured it out, guys. So hopefully you agree, and hopefully this will help you out if you need to put a spare tire on your Ranger. Peace out, guys.